What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Outside Interference. My name is Eddie Torres, your host, and today I'm being joined by former Store Horseman himself, Mr. Eddie Furth. How are you, brother?
Good to see you. It's weird. It's funny being in a room with another bald guy with a beard. Now there's two bald guys with beards named Eddie.
Yeah, that's right.
The bow tie is the only way anyone's going to know the difference between the two of us.
You should have brought me a bow tie.
No, because they would have confused us. That's why I got the gimmick. If you get the gimmick and I got the gimmick, they're going to think we're the same person.
That's true.
They'll confuse us.
I tried to switch it up. I took off my glasses are there. I don't have them on, and I'm wearing a hat just to kind of distinguish.
That's how you know the difference between the two of us. For the video version. For the audio version, people are like, I didn't know either one. Although we do sound bald, I think.
We definitely sound bald.
From the sound of our voice, I think you could tell.
I sound bald and fat, which is great. I say Birkin.
Yeah.
Birkin. So, Mr. Eddie, you've I feel weird calling. I've rarely talked to Eddies now that I realize that.
It's a very uncommon name. That's what I find. I find very few Eddies in general. The idea that I've run across a second one. I don't know if I know a third. Eddie Pepitone, I guess. The third Eddie I would know in L.A.
Yeah.
Very few.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Eddies.
Eddie
maybe in East L.A. there's a lot of Eddie Torres.
That's probably true.
Or Eddie Gonzalez.
That's Eduardo.
So how have you been? I haven't seen you in person in a bit. We used to run into each other at the store all the time. Mm-hmm. Before that, when you were running Store Horsemen with the boys, Mr. Scortis and Burns and Tony Hinchcliffe and all the boys. How have you been, and how are things going with you? I know you have your own show at the store now too, right?
Yeah, I've been doing a show called No Laughing over at the store. We pull contestants from the audience. If they can last 3 one-minute rounds of comedy without laughing, they win cash and prizes. It's awesome. It's one of the most just spontaneous, unpredictable, in-the-moment shows. The comedians don't know what to expect. They're doing a minute at a time. The audience members are now a part of the show. It's really about them. They get a chance to come on stage. But the minute I pull a name out of the hat, we don't know what's going to happen. Ryan Phillippe came by and was a contestant on the show. I did this show also at the Ice House in Pasadena, and we had Ice from the American Gladiators as a surprise guest contestant, and she tried not to laugh. She won money for charity. I was at the store. Leslie Jones popped in to make Ryan Phillippe break.
Did she run the light? No, I'm just kidding.
10 seconds. It took her 10 seconds to break Phillippe. It was in no time. As soon as she started grinding on him.
Amazing.
So that's been fantastic. I did another set of WOW tapings, a couple WOW tapings since I've seen you. So I still referee for WOW.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And we do 2 or 3 TV tapings a year. I think we actually have another set coming up in December. So we'll go down to the Belasco, downtown LA. I love working with WOW.
I didn't know you were still doing that. I'd love to come to one of the shows.
The atmosphere is fantastic. The crowd is always great. The wrestlers are phenomenal. The show that David and Selena put on is just legitimately one of a kind when it comes to television wrestling and what's being done today and how they do it. It's like a throwback to the old days while also being an updated modern version. Nice. One of my favorite companies to work for.
Is Jeannie Buss heavily involved? That's how I met her.
I've seen Jeannie. I've not been introduced to Jeannie, but she'll come by the tapings every time we're down there. She'll always come by. AJ Mendez was also working with us for a season or 2.
Nice.
So we have an amazing crew. Yeah, Jeannie's fantastic. It's not bad to be associated with her, but I know that the effort she puts in to make it work is real. She talks with David and them to really make sure it's having every chance of success possible.
If people are watching and you don't know who Jeannie Buss is, she owns the Lakers.
Yeah.
So seems like a person that is unapproachable or untouchable, but she's so down to earth. She's very involved in the women's wrestling. I met her at a Comic-Con. I think it was one of those cons where they were performing. They had a little tiny ring in there. Mm-hmm. And she was just hanging out and then telling me about how she wants to start doing stand-up or she's done stand-up and wants to do more. It's just one of us, but many, many tax brackets away from us.
And her whole family owns the Lakers, and her brother Johnny Buss he's the one who just reopened the Ice House. The Bus family owns
Oh,
the Ice House
really?
now.
Oh.
One of the rooms is in honor of her. It's named after her. Their father, Dr. Bus, Dr. Jerry Bus. He's
Dr.
not a
Bus.
doctor. He's
Or
a
a
doctor
bus.
of Lakers. He's the Lakers. But they're like this family of royalty here in LA. The entire city built around this family, and so he owns. Johnny Bus owns the Ice House. They did this big renovation. It's fantastic. I know she just got married to Jay Moore as well. So
Yeah.
I would love to see her over at the Ice House. That's a fantastic venue. I loved bringing No Laughing there.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I haven't been to the new Ice House yet. I've heard some of the veteran comedians of the scene. I'm not gonna throw them under the bus, but I have heard a few of them complaining that they didn't know who they were when they walked in the door. Like, they were like, whoa, you don't know who I am? It's like, well, maybe don't act that way.
Look, every comedian and every wrestler I've ever met complains. There's no... I don't think I've ever met anybody, especially in performance or entertainment, that isn't complaining about something. So I'm sure there's something to complain about.
Sure. But that's such a weird thing to complain about. Like, they didn't know who I was when I walked in. Like,
Yeah.
okay, diva. Relax.
Next time they do that, just be like, yeah, but did you know who you were when you walked in? Because I don't think you've done the self-reflection.
I don't even know who I am. So what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
So that's cool. I did not know you were still refereeing. I was going to bring it up, like your history in refereeing. Who were you with before? Was it always WoW?
I started with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. So Dave Marquez ran that. He's
Still
turned
has.
it into United Wrestling Network. It's transformed a bit. But that's where I started. I did a little work with the Santino brothers, which is where a lot of Southern California people train.
Yeah.
I got brought in essentially under the tutelage as a referee under Nick Bonanno. Nick Bonanno is amazing. Did you get a chance to meet him?
I have not. No.
Head referee and producer over at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and now is one of the writers over at NXT.
Oh, hell yeah.
So he and
NXT
Jeremy
is on a fucking hell of a run right now.
Yeah, and we've got a couple of SoCal guys working over there.
Nice.
So I was with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood for a while. WoW brought me in when they were in their infancy. We started like outdoors at a hotel in Long Beach, like a banquet hall, but outside. And they were in the midst of building it, and now it is this weekly television show shot several times a year.
I saw a billboard driving around for one of the
Oh, nice.
matches or shows or something.
Yeah, it's an incredible show. And the did you see that new docuseries Wrestlers on Netflix about
I have
OVW?
not. I have not. Did you watch it?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah,
Okay.
I finished it in like 2 days, and two of the wrestlers in OVW are two of our WoW wrestlers. And one of the big moments is there's a big OVW show coming up, and these two wrestlers have to fly to Cali to do a WoW show. And will they make it back from WoW in California in time for the OVW show in Kentucky?
Oh, jeez.
And, oh man, it was a big cliffhanger. And it was funny because I was like, oh shit, they were with me. I didn't even know they had a show back at OVW that they might have been missing. We were just shooting the tag match.
Nice. No, I haven't seen it yet. I've had a couple of the boys complain that it's exposing too much of the business. I don't know. I'm not in the business, so I don't care. But I have, that's just what I've heard, that you're setting back independent wrestling. It's like, oh, well, I don't know about all that. I haven't seen it, so I don't know what it is. I know Al Snow produced it, and it's all about his work there. So we'll see. How about your experience with the Store Horsemen at the store? Like I kind of I kind of snaked my way into your little group as aggressively as I could during like maybe the height of a feud with you and Chris Burns.
Look, if I ever see Chris Burns ever again, he's getting a haircut. Because the last time we were together, he shaved my beard off in the middle of the ring at the Comedy Store after cheating. They reached out to me to bring me in for a few different reasons. They were running this great thing. One of my favorite things about wrestling is watching with a group of people.
Yeah.
And something that I always sort of romanticized. Remember when they talked about how WrestleMania 1, 2, and 3 were played on closed circuit, and you could go to like a movie theater and pay like $5 and watch it at the movie theater like it was a live show.
Yeah.
I thought that was one of the coolest ideas, but it was never done anymore. Some bars might play it, but you don't know. And a couple of times, the Store Horsemen, I remember there was a SummerSlam I want to say it was Roman and Brock a couple years ago. And they played SummerSlam on a screen with no sound, and the Horsemen were doing commentary over it the whole time. So I just went down to hang out. I was like, what else am I going to do on SummerSlam Sunday but watch it with them? And it slowly became this thing, and they brought me onto the podcast, and slowly but surely you could realize that it's sort of the two sides of the podcast became very clear. There were the independent New Japan, WWE sucks, nothing they do is ever good, and all we want is PWG, New Japan, all of that. This is before AEW came out, so this idea of what Cody and the Young Bucks were about to do was big, and that was right. And then on the other side, you had everybody who was right, which is that WWE is the number one product. They do it the best way. You are missing the point if you don't see how good it is. And I obviously fell on the right side of that argument, which was me and Tony going, you guys are insane if you don't see how good what you're watching actually is, especially for what you're talking about. Yeah. So that boiled over into us doing Storecade, where this was something I had done at Meltdown Comics. Did you know that we did this at Meltdown previously?
I did not know.
I'm working with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I have historical roast and fictional roast as live shows at Meltdown Comics in their showroom, Nerd Melt showroom, which was
I missed that place so much.
Part of the Nerdist podcast. Missed that place. R.I.P. Meltdown. And one day I kept working both sides. And one day we brought Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, put the ring in the middle of Meltdown Comics, and we had a whole Saturday event at 11 a.m., this Saturday morning wrestling show.
Like in where the books are?
We cleared out comic book shelves. I'll show you pictures when we're off. I'll send them so you can post them. Wow. Jamie Iovine was working with us.
Nice.
Jervis Cottonbelly was at the show. Peter Avalon. We had this incredible show. Bateman was there, who I adore working with. Scorpio Sky was on the card. Nice. We put a ring in the middle of Meltdown Comics and did a whole red carpet rumble rollout for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood.
Fuck yeah.
So when I was with the guys at the store, we were like, what if we did this? No one has ever put a pro wrestling ring in the middle of the main room at the Comedy Store, live on the Sunset Strip. And with what we had, we started to build out this whole show. And in the meantime, we have this internal feud of nothing WWE does is right, and everything WWE does is beautiful. You're missing the point if you're not just watching this product and looking at it. And it boiled over into a hair versus beard match, where if my team won, we shave Chris's head. If his team wins, they shave my beard. And this guy cheated. Chris I'm refereeing the match because I'm smart. I signed a contract that said I'd referee the match. I'm an impartial referee licensed by the State of California Athletic Commission. He pulls me out of the ring, knocks me over the head with a Ridge Wallet by Ridge Wallet. They were still our sponsors. And cheated, took my hand, counted the 3, and then they shaved my beard and cut off my bow tie in the middle of the ring. Utter blasphemy. I still haven't forgiven him.
I may or may not have been involved slightly.
Did you throw the Ridge Wallet in the ring?
Oh, you know. I needed to do something else besides, pull one of those pyro tubes during the entrance of the Shockmaster for David Arquette's
the Shockmaster.
Yeah, I know. I was, very fortunate. I had met Johnny prior. I don't even remember exactly how we met. I know we met at a show somewhere, and then I hit him up to do my pod, RRBG, and then from there I did a live RRBG at Grill 'Em All where we were watching Bloodsport. I'm like, hey Johnny, come through and do some commentary with me while we eat burgers. And he was like, burgers? So that was an easy sell.
That's how we got him to show up for the podcast every week.
Burgers and beer. That's all you got to bring.
Yeah.
But no, we hung out, and then he's like, let's go to the store. I'll introduce you to everybody. And somehow, I don't know how it happened, I ended up filling in for Tony Hinchcliffe on the episode where you two
Yeah.
had your little meltdown, which was great. I loved it. And then I was able to be there for Storecade and help out build the ring with. I know I saw Peter Avalon there, building the stage as well.
You probably met Nick. You met Nick Bonanno that day. You just might not have known it was him because he was running the ring crew that day. Marquez was down there to check things out.
I did see Marquez, Enzo, or the One, or Real One, or whatever he's calling himself these days.
Yep.
Who is in New Japan now, of all places.
Of course.
So odd. But yeah, I loved everything that was going on there, and that's pretty much why this show became a thing, was that, once Tony moved to Austin and kind of just the show itself disintegrated, there was a vacancy, I would say, at the Comedy Store for wrestling, and that's where I jumped in. The new producer, John, had shown up and was like, I'm trying to figure out how we do this. And lo and behold, Comedy Store Wrestling was born. And then a year later, Comedy Store Wrestling died. And now we have this, which is not bad. I'm not going to lie. I feel like now I'm in more control. All my ideas, I always wanted to do another Storecade 2. I've had that conversation with our group up as recently as 6 months ago. Every time there's a way and a reason and a thought as to how to put something like that together, my guess would be that Storecade 2 would actually be down at the Mothership in Austin. Comedy Mothership seems like they'd be prime for a Sunday afternoon, set up a wrestling ring in the Big Boy, bring in a couple wrestlers down to Austin and blow that thing out. I'll fly out to Austin for that.
It's just a matter of if Chris and Josh and Matt Edgar have the stones enough to show up and face down me and Tony and see if they can still back up all the trash that they talked.
Hell yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
And Joe Rogan's doing interviews now with pro wrestlers after years of talking shit about pro wrestling, so he might be into the idea.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good.
I love that the first wrestler that really got him to open up for it was Undertaker.
Yeah,
That's a really cool connection that of all people he went with. He sat down with Taker and was like, oh, this makes sense. I get you. This is...
Yeah, because he had DDP on, I think, before. Didn't really
connect. Yeah.
But he didn't. He saw DDP more of like the fitness aspect and like the recovery aspect, not the pro wrestling aspect. Yeah, but now it's Flair and Hogan and I get it. I see. We've been on that tip longer than you, Joe. We get it. But that's fine. I wanted to bring you in to talk a bit about a lot of the shit that's going on in pro wrestling. Normally we would have Earl here to talk. He wants to just be our AEW correspondent, so he's now on the other side of that. He doesn't like WWE. He thinks it's garbage.
Earl, what happened? You used to know what you were talking about.
Not anymore.
He's going to tell me AEW is better, that they're...
Much better, according to him. Because you know why? Because they've got the Stinger.
Look, and I will say, it's not that I am anti-AEW, but what I will say is I watched AEW make a lot of mistakes, and this is what we would argue about on the podcast all the time. They would make mistakes in what they were doing that if WWE made them, the people who are fans of AEW would make a direct criticism of. But then AEW will do it, and it's the greatest thing that's ever happened. Yeah. But if WWE did that same thing, if they brought in God forbid, a Christian Cage, or we'll get to the obvious one coming up, or the CM Punk stuff, the way they handled Punk coming in and how that first promo amazing, but then that follow-up afterwards seemed to be something that they didn't really have their full foot or thought into. Bryan Danielson coming in and how he was worked. I always thought, like, if WWE did some of those things, I just felt there was a bias that wasn't being admitted. Whereas even if you're on the other side, like, I love AEW. I love what MJF does. I love that there's a second product. And I'll jump the shark and jump the gun now, I love that Edge decided he wanted to go and test himself in a new spot and say, can I go somewhere new as a performer with who I am, with what I've done? Am I going to stay comfortable here? Am I going to sign this deal and retire and know that this is you read The Dark Knight, right?
Yeah.
You know the opening line, this would be a good death, but not good enough?
Yeah.
He went, this would be a good death, but you know what? I want to see just one time what it's like. Because you know he's going to come back to WWE. He's not done. He just went, I'm an artist, and I'd like to go paint. Yeah. I'd like to go free. So they do some incredible stuff, and then And then MJF and Adam Cole are buddies, and I'm like, I missed the point from where you guys were calling each other out on one of you being on steroids and the other having a terrible body to now you're best friends. What did I miss in between that's making that so much better than what the Bloodline was doing every week, making 20-minute sitcom length vignettes that are gripping?
Yeah. They fumble the ball quite a bit. I enjoy the product. I'm a fan. I'm a big New Japan mark, so AEW obviously plays to my what do you call that? Whatever. My preferences.
Sensibilities.
But they fumble it all the time. They fumbled Edge. Like, who didn't know that was happening?
By the way,
who was surprised?
My first thought with his debut is, can nobody keep a camera on Edge when he returns? You remember the Royal Rumble, which we were there. At the Royal Rumble, we go back to the hotel, we watch it. Remember they cut away from his big spear with Dolph?
Oh, yeah.
And if you go back and watch his he comes into AEW, they don't have the camera on him when he debuts. Why is it, when you know Edge is returning, turn the camera on Edge and show me Edge. I want to see him. He's here.
Their camera people need a lot of work.
WWE's camera people need a lot of work. I don't need the camera moving with the punch.
Yeah, that's pretty
Keep
rare.
it steady.
But the people in AEW are extraordinarily bad at camera work. Like, no disrespect to the people. I'm sure they're professionals, but good Lord. Like, the Edge thing, they miss finishes. For so many matches, they just look away and they show the crowd, and then you hear ding, 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 and then they turn. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? And then they somehow always catch Jon Moxley blading.
Yeah.
Always, they turn to him, and he's like, it's like, hey, what are you doing? Don't look at him right now. It's insane. But we do live in a weird time, like the tribalism, and like when you guys were doing it at the Storecade, Store Horsemen, it was playful. And it was enjoyable. But now on the internet, it's like anything. Yeah, all you have to do is post a picture of a pro wrestler, and you'll have 37 replies in 2 seconds. That guy sucks. That guy sucks. No, he's the best. No, he's the best. No, he sucks. It's like the tribalism is weird to me. I enjoy all of it.
Which wrestler would you post a picture of right now?
CM Punk.
CM Punk?
The world will go crazy, especially me, because I've verbally lambasted him here on the show before.
You have, yeah.
Oh, yeah. His little promo where he called wrestlers soft and he came out with the belt with the X on it. I thought it was so lame. All of it's lame. He's lame. Sorry, I don't care, CM Punk. Don't come back to WWE. Or do and make some money, but then leave really quickly, okay?
I was very excited to see what he was going to do in AEW, and it started with some really strong stuff.
Yeah, MJF stuff was great.
It just felt like they all needed a chance to get some footing that never did, and they're a new company, right? I hear those camera issues. I learned at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and wow, shooting wrestling is a much different thing even than from live sports. So understanding all of that stuff, and WWE makes terrible mistakes as well, and they're a high production value.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that stuff. Like,
it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to do. I'm giving you guys, the camera guys, a little bit of shit, but I know it's hard to do. But anyway, let's get into some of the topics here. Like, I wanted to talk a little bit about Wrestle Dream because it just happened, and we had that. We already mentioned the Adam Copeland debut, which was, again, I don't know if it's a sign of the times because we have so much access to information and social media and whatnot, but it was not a surprise to me. And it was even more obvious as it was progressing where, okay, they're beating down, they're beating him down, so somebody's going to come in for the save. Somebody comes in for the save. Oh, it's still out there. He's still outnumbered. Oh, man, I wonder what's going to happen next. And then they cut to a fucking vignette of him driving a car into the stadium or something. And it's like, so what happened in the ring? Everybody was just waiting for the vignette to finish. And then when the music hit, I will say this, and I'll give this credit to Edge. Even though I knew exactly what was happening and that he was coming, when the music hit, I still went, oh, shit. Like, okay, he got the song too, and the presentation, and the rated R. Like, I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool. So, I am.
And it
excited.
sounded like Beth Phoenix at the top of his music, right? That must be Beth Phoenix.
Yeah, it must be her.
Saying "You Think You Know Me."
They didn't have the rights to the "You Think You Know Me." They had the rights to the whole song, but not that little piece. So they had to re-record it, but it's cool. I think it's great. I'm looking forward to the geriatric tables, ladders, and or wheelchairs match between him and Christian and the Hardys. Yeah, because it's going to be a rough one. The Hardys, like Edge and Christian, are still working pretty smoothly, but the Hardys are having a rough go.
Yeah,
I love those guys to death, but stop it. Maybe at least change your wrestling style a little bit. Make it a little more grounded. I don't want to see Jeff Hardy throwing his entire body weight on top of wrestlers because it's ridiculous. But I'm not going to do like a full review, but some of the matches that really stood out for me, starting with the best match of the night and possibly the best match of the year, Zack Sabre Jr. and Bryan Danielson put on a master class of professional wrestling. And I know a lot of people didn't like it because there was a lot of moves and holds and whatnot, but that's pro wrestling. That's what I enjoy about New Japan, and they put on a fucking clinic in that sense. What did you think? Did you watch it?
I didn't see the whole match, but the thing that I look at when I'm watching a match now to determine how much I think I'm enjoying it or it's good or it's connecting, I look at the pacing. I look at just like a stand-up show. First off, where are you in the show? What kind of energy do they need? But ultimately, the pacing of the match. And the thing that I can compare it to the most, in this match, I'd be interested to hear how you think this match stacks up to it. But the example I give is if you go back and you watch the first John Cena Rock match at WrestleMania 28, their pacing, when they sped up and when they slowed down, how long they waited in each hold for the audience to tell them to move versus getting up on their own and then having the audience follow. Every once in a while, I'll see a match and people don't like the pacing, but if you actually listen and you wait, you realize that they went really fast to then stop and slow it down for a second to make you want action. The audience then starts chanting, right? It's that classic, you're down in the hold and the audience starts to pound and clap, and that's them telling you now it's time. You've got us where you want. You've built the tension, and you can watch great wrestlers stand up in that moment, move again, big action, big spots, back and forth, hope spot, cut off, back down, heat, slow it, wait, let the audience tell you we need to do it, because if you're going, how long was that match? 20, 25 minutes?
Should have been 60, but yeah, it was like 30 minutes.
When you're going like that, you're telling a 30-minute story. You need peaks and valleys. And is there anyone better at Bryan Danielson than reading when you might need a peak or a valley in making it look real like an athletic competition?
Yeah, it's the pacing. I mean, I would have to rewatch that Rock match to kind of compare the two. But what I enjoy, I now enjoy wrestling in two ways. And it's a switch in my brain that it just goes on and off. And it's like, am I watching pro wrestling for the athletic sports aspect of it, like any indie show here, or am I watching it for entertainment purposes to see a story play out like WWE does? Because that's what WWE does. They tell stories. I think AEW and New Japan and all the indies, they tell stories too, but it's mostly about let's see the competition, let's see the athleticism happen, and there is that aspect of the crowd participation and getting the pacing down right. In terms of pro wrestling, that match to me was perfection. It was exactly what I wanted. But I can tell that a lot of people are looking for a better story. Didn't really get much of a story out of it.
Sometimes too, the difference can be I'm a big fan of the attraction match and the main event because there's not just story around it. But for instance, Logan Paul and Roman Reigns overseas felt like a big that's a main event.
Yeah.
That's something where I all of a sudden sit up and go, I don't totally know what is going to happen. Even if I think I know Roman Reigns is going to win, I'm like, wait a minute. I got to see Logan Paul, who is operating on a level he has no right to operate at for how young he is to this business.
Yeah.
He's blowing me away with his in-ring work, his storytelling, knowing how and when to move, and then that character work. So when I look at the attraction, Bryan Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. is not necessarily built on that attraction. It's built on the athletic competition. It is we are striving to compete.
Yeah, we're two of the best technical wrestlers in the world to see who's the best technical wrestler in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. There's room for that, which that's where I fall away from like the discussion, the tribalism, where like to me, I think there's room for all of it. There's room for comedy. I hated on Danhausen when he first got signed to AEW because I don't really I don't see it, but then I noticed that they weren't going to push him to be world champion. Like, he has his space. There's room for all of it, and he has his room. Even though he's been injured most of the time he's been out there, but there's room for all of it, and I'm happy to allow that room to breathe. And that's something that Wrestle Dream showcased, I think, because they fucking put Josh Barnett on the card.
That's my guy. Josh Barnett's been great to us. Josh Barnett chopped the shit out of Johnny Skortis. Go back and find that clip online of Johnny's chest just spraying sweat from getting hit. He started to sweat and sprayed it in a single chop.
Yep. And no, I mean, Josh and I have become close friends over the years. I mean, we have a fucking beer together that we made, and it was weird because I've kind of gone past that. When I first met Josh, it was like, oh shit, that's Josh Barnett. That's the babyface assassin. That's the War Master. To now we're like, that's my boy. That's my friend. I see him all the time. We hang out, and to see him pop out at AEW, I popped. It's like, what the fuck? And to have it be a tribute to Inoki, have a solid match with Claudio like that, like, it was really, that's what I'm enjoying about AEW. It's all the different flavors of wrestling that we're getting from them.
Which is what I think wrestling is at its finest, that variety show feel. Yeah. In the same way as athletic, intense competition is important, main event is important. I don't think there was as well and executed or as important of a match on a WrestleMania card as that Sami Zayn Johnny Knoxville match 2 years ago.
Ooh.
That is a wild, outside the box, but still grounded in this sort of over-the-top, sort of hardcore gimmick, sort of old-school Southern Texas deathmatch wrestling, bringing in a celebrity. It just hit all of those other boxes that are way outside of what you'd think they would be, but fit perfectly. And on a great card, you'd have all three. You'd have a comic match. You'd have a hard-hitting, intense match. You'd have something like Josh Barnett showing up where you're like, oh my God, a former boxer, MMA fighter is coming in to beat Claudio Castagnoli. Holy cow. Yeah. And then you're supposed to have a formidable champion on one side of the fence or the other that people came at the end of the day to see that top number one guy do the most important thing on that show, whatever it is tonight. Yeah. Whether it's that triple threat with Charlotte, Becky, and Ronda at WrestleMania, whether it's Roman Reigns and his cousin, whether it's MJF and whoever he's going to be facing next, right? Didn't he just confront...
Well, that was actually my one complaint about Wrestle Dream. That was the one thing they did not deliver. What you're saying.
They didn't have a main event like a...
The main event was the TNT Championship with Christian, and that's fine. But why is MJF opening the show in a handicap tag match? That's your world champion, dude. That should be the main attraction. You should have reshuffled all you had to reshuffle so that MJF is closing the night.
Yeah.
No offense to Christian Cage. Big star, great. And it elevated the belt a little bit because, it's the main event spot. However, for Wrestle Dream, that should have been an MJF spot at the end of the night.
And I don't mind how AEW has seemed to have, right, they have their weekly television, and then they seem to have their big shows, their big pay-per-views, their big events, and then some of these kind of smaller in-between shows, right?
Yeah,
and I don't know the name.
Dynamites.
Yeah, and I don't know the name of all of them, but right after the one where CM Punk got fired, there was one in Chicago like a week later that wasn't their top one, so MJF wasn't on it. But if your champ's not on it, let him take the night off, so whatever is the main event, because we know why Christian went on last. You can't bring Edge out. Adam Copeland, sorry. You can't bring Adam Copeland out with a terrible... That video gimmick was terrible. That video gimmick was terrible. It was cool. I get where you started, but if you're doing this, you hit the music and you go. But I like if you have these secondary smaller shows, these in-between stuff, keep MJF off the card for that month or that week. Let him come cut his promo or do what he needs. That handicap match could have been a Wednesday night, right? They could have done that on a Wednesday night.
That's the other thing with Wrestle Dream. They could have cut a lot of things out. There was multi-man tag matches that did not need to be on the card. That whole number one contenders for the tag titles, I think it was 4 tag teams. Like, that could have been Dynamite. That didn't need to be on the card. Yeah. I don't know. There was a lot of that going on. But some of the matches that I do want to point out that if you haven't seen Wrestle Dream and you want to see some good matches, obviously Zack Sabre Jr., Bryan Danielson, FTR Aussie Open was great. Swerve and Hangman put on a banger that was better than I expected it to be. I love both guys, but I was not expecting that match out of them. That was great. And Shibata versus Kingston, but for that old school Japanese hard hitting choppy chop fest, which I love as well.
Kingston has been on. I mean, what a career resurrection to have this. It's done a sort of second run, first run of a moment to really catch some fire and do work that a lot of people knew he was capable of too.
Oh yeah, I didn't. I'm sorry, and I apologize. I was wrong. I've always liked him because I liked his candor on the mic. I thought he was very forward and open and honest and real. So I've always enjoyed him. But I had even Autistic Thunder would hit me up. It was like, I think he's going to be the AW World Champ. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Yeah. You're autistic. That's why you think that. But no, it wasn't that. It was just he saw something I didn't see. And when I saw him beat Claudio for the world title, the World Ring of Honor title, I was like, oh.
That's
makes
what
sense.
Another company like AEW does for the wrestling business is that it gives a spot where Eddie Kingston would probably have never gotten that kind of a moment to shine in NXT, even let alone the main roster in WWE. Yeah. But here's an act that works. And forgive me for saying it though, these are acts, these are bits. Roman Reigns is not a shithead. He plays one on TV to really great effect. That's his act. Yeah. And eventually that act is going to crest and he's going to have to reinvent and do something else again. Eddie Kingston is from what I would believe, is a very real version of himself, but is an act, and that act got over just like a comedian. You need to find that groove where I go on at 10 o'clock at night because I have dirty jokes, but if I can find that 10 o'clock crowd, I work. If I find the right market, if I find the right TV show that complements my comedic skills, all of a sudden it pops. And he found such a great moment to be able to utilize his skill set.
Absolutely, man. And I don't know. I feel that AEW has the right idea, but there's certain things that they're just fumbling. Like, for example, Kenny Omega. What? I thought that was supposed to be your biggest star. He's on a losing streak. He's lost the last 6 matches. He's in random-ass tag matches now with Jericho. What's going on with Kenny Omega? I don't understand.
Did he ever... this is a stupid question. I'm going to be embarrassed to ask, but was he AEW champion ever?
Yeah.
He was early on, right?
He did a belt collector thing where he was AEW champ, Ring of Honor, Impact. Like, he had 4 belts at one point.
Got it.
But,
it was very early on, but I vaguely remember. But, yeah, he's not really...
He's not doing anything.
On the map the way you would imagine he would have been. Is that injury related? Because he did have an injury at one point,
He did have
right?
an injury, and he came back, and he wrestled still kind of recovering from injury. I honestly think, because the Bucks are also kind of not doing great. They just won that tag match on Wrestle Dream, so now they're number 1 contenders. But I think the Bucks and Kenny are kind of being punished for the whole CM Punk thing. Punk's gone, but they're kind of like, well, you know what? We're going to cool you guys off a little bit, too.
Look, you know what my therapist would say about something like that is that in a situation like that, it's not just one person who is to blame.
No, of course.
And it's not even just punishment, but if you have gotten in a workplace setting to that place where you
are blowing
where that
up.
Keeps happening over and over again, that's not just one side being difficult to work with. That's 2 sides not understanding that we're all working towards the common good and working together is better. I don't know. I don't have any backstage information. I've never met any of the guys or know anything about them. But if that continuously happens, you go to therapy long enough, you're like, it's that Taylor Swift line, hi, it's me, I'm the problem, it's me. We all contribute to the problem. So at some point, they also are culpable for something that happens in that kind of a relationship.
Oh, yeah, and I know that they're cocky and shitheads, from time to time. I've met them once. They were super nice to me, but I've heard stories. The whole issue with me and CM Punk started, where I started blaming him mostly for the problems was when he started picking on other people that I do know. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to get anybody any heat, but there are wrestlers that are involved in that whole debacle outside of the Bucks that I personally know. And I know that it's been said on the show live. He's an asshole to most people that he meets. He has his circle of friends, and then everybody else, fuck them. They don't know what they're doing. They should treat me like a god because I'm older and I'm the best in the world. Like, you're living the gimmick, dude. You got to settle down a little bit. You can't have blow-ups like that at work. It's ridiculous. But I'm hoping that they get, I thought this Wrestle Dream thing, they kept saying the end of an era. It ended up being Edge, the new rated R era. I thought they were going to merge with New Japan.
Oh, yeah.
With the whole Inoki thing. Yeah. And I was like, new era. What is this? Are they going to merge? Are they going to strengthen their partnership? But I guess not. I don't know. Well, let's go into some WWE stuff. There's a lot of shit going on. Speaking of CM Punk, the current rumor being that he'll be showing up at Survivor Series because it's in Chicago. And he did some commentary at an MMA show. And he was like, yeah, I got about 2 months before I get busy again. And in 2 months is Survivor Series in Chicago. So that's the current hot rumor. Hopefully, for business sakes, I hope it happens. Make your money. I'm not opposed to people making their money. I just hope he figures out that, chill out a little bit, dude. Stop causing so many fucking problems.
He's always struck me as a tortured artist. Like, he and Bret Hart are the same wrestler to me in the way of they both believe it's real in some respect. They've always appeared like they don't think the in-ring thing is real, but anytime you go, I'm the best that there is, and you truly believe that you are better than everyone in a subjective business, and that the art form is so pure, you have to honor it in a strict sense, because if you're in the entertainment business long enough, you understand that everything gets bastardized somehow. Everything will at some point get taken and twisted, and you're like, we're going to hold this thing precious, and then a week later you're like, oh no, we're going to have to take our great intellectual property and we're going to have to turn it on its ear, and God, every example I can think calls out someone in particular, but you're going to end up taking it and bastardizing it in a good way, because it's not sacred. What's sacred is entertaining the audience. Yeah. So when Punk and Bret always go, but I really was the best, you're like, but you're all we're all characters in the game, and there is no best, because there's no way to mark. There's no marked way to say, oh, you're better than somebody else. Because for everybody who connects with Bret Hart, there are people who connect with Shawn Michaels. Mm-hmm. So the best thing is to find two great pieces that go together that engage the whole audience.
Right.
With Punk, my questions are always to my friends, do you think he will show up, and would you bring him in? Like, if you're WWE right now, is that somebody who has market value for what you're doing with a product? Do you bring him in? Where do you put him in? What's that story? And if the rumors of him being difficult to work with at the moment are true, and we know how their relationship was, if you're in that writer's room, if you're on that creative team, are you going, we should definitely bring him in? Or, guys, we don't even need him? Where do you stand in that way?
It's interesting. I don't think they need him. But I do see money in bringing him into WWE and having him go after Cody.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, man, you started AEW. You are the cause of all of my angst and blah, 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 blah. So there could be a story there to tell with money. But that's since we're talking about WWE, that's one of my notes here is that I feel like Cody's getting lost in the shuffle, man. They're having him in a tag match with Jey Uso. Mm-hmm. What's happening? I thought is he ever going to finish the fucking story? Like, I don't think he's ever finishing the story.
Did you watch that documentary?
I did.
Because that documentary was awesome, and also made me go, oh, they're really going to have this guy take the belt off Roman? Yeah. And I don't know if they've
figured out
I love him, but I haven't connected with this new character yet. I haven't felt the thing they want me to feel about him just yet. I just like him because I like him, and I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for American Nightmare in WWE to connect with me and make me go, oh, you are the guy that they're telling me that you are. You are, because I'm a big, no bones about it, I'm a huge Roman Reigns fan. Mm-hmm. I think he's awesome in every way you can be. I want his reign to go as long as humanly possible. I want it to beat Hulk Hogan's record of how many days he's held it. And I think in a scripted business, you take that and you make it as long as you can, especially with a heel where him holding on to the belt produces even more heat. The only challenge to me is then the person who takes that belt off him has to be as impactful as the Reign in some way, shape, or form. It will end, and it doesn't have to be the next guy. But if Roman Reigns is beating records left and right, he better at least beat Hogan's reign. And if he's not, then it better be because you crowned somebody better. Yeah. It's tough. I don't, at the moment, I want to see Cody win the world title, but not that WWE Universal Heavyweight Championship title.
I don't want to see him win the tag titles. That's weird. Look, I think they had me at WrestleMania 39. They had the story. The Dusty connection, the story between, the history between the Wild Samoans and Dusty, and how Roman is a Dusty kid. Like, they had the story, and then they had him lose.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was like, you know what? That was the right choice. Roman's still on top, whatever. But as time has passed and I've seen what they've done with Cody, now I don't think that way anymore. I feel like they fucked up. They took too long. Now Cody doesn't matter to me. Like, I still do the whoa, whatever, whenever he comes out. But I was into it when he debuted at that, was it Rumble or was it Mania?
It was Rumble. And look, that's where I disagree with because I've heard this argument that Cody should have won at Mania and that would have solidified. And I don't think that. I think it was not time for him to win because it would have been so contrived and in the moment. Because you want to sell me on it? He should have come out number 3 in that Rumble and last. He should have come out 2. But when you come out at 30 and you win, you didn't earn the victory in the same way as, I had to start out.
And
you can make a performance and you can tell the story where, oh my God, I have to be this underdog, beat insurmountable odds, put on that Ric Flair 1992 Royal Rumble performance from start to finish, earn my respect, because in that one moment, you got to show me. You have to show me now. You went away. You came back. I was told you were in the Rumble. You're not a surprise. Come out at number 2. Go the distance, and now make me believe in you. And there was no moment that made me believe. So when he lost, I was like, actually, that made more sense. And I don't think winning the title would have been the difference going forward. I don't think it just automatically. I think the title reign would have ended up being like a Daniel Bryan or Kofi Kingston like reign, where there was nothing next for him enough to make this solidify, right? It would have been Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 31. His next opponent was Kane, and you're like, well, we know we're just building a champion now. We're not. Yeah. He's building up to being champion, which is a much better story in the long run to me.
Let me correct you before the internet nerds go down our comment section and burn us alive. Cody debuted at Mania.
The year before.
Yeah.
And then he came back Rumble from the
injury.
The pec injury. And they did that weird. They announced he was in the Rumble and then pretended it was a surprise.
Yeah, they need to stop doing that. I don't want to know who's in the Rumble. Don't have wrestlers come out and say, I'm now in the Rumble this year. Like, I don't care. Surprise us. That was the whole thing about Rumble, the surprise.
So when he came back from that pec injury at Rumble, I wanted to see him go the distance to earn.
Yeah, it would have made sense.
To earn the title shot. When you come out at 30 and you throw 2 guys over, I'm like, yeah, you won, but you didn't beat
win.
Yeah, that's a very different thing with a Rumble.
No, and I agree. I think when I was at that Mania, 39, I feel like that was the right choice at that time. Mm-hmm. I just feel like now, like, that choice should have been backed up. You should have Cody still building to get to 40. To get to Mania 40 and take the belt from Roman.
Well, what do you think is happening at Mania 40? Because I think that
now it's The Rock.
They've clearly had to hold Cody off for a second. They're like, we're going to back off him for a second, but we need him here. They're going to push him at a certain moment. So you think this is Rock? Rock is returning.
Rock is returning.
And what's going to happen?
I'm hoping The Rock does not win because we don't need The Rock with the belt. I think he just puts over Roman the right way as opposed to just raising his hand like that one time he did and everybody hated it. Have a good solid match. Roman goes over. He's the tribal chief. Blah, 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 blah. You could have The Rock win, but the writer's strike is over. So I have a feeling
Zag's not over yet, though. He's still Rock's still got to make some money until he comes back. Cena's contract has not run out yet.
Yeah.
They cannot make Peacemaker 4 yet.
That's true. I mean, they're writing it, but it can't be done yet.
Yeah.
And Batista's on his way back, I'm sure, at some point.
But he's broken so many noses in every business. He's like, I'm just going to go to work. I'm going to keep my head down.
So you have Rock winning?
If I were working right now, the thing I'd be pitching, and this is dependent on a lot of things, but I watched a lot of what Rock said about whether did you see his Pat McAfee interview too?
Yeah.
I watched all of that. I watched him and his return very closely. That appearance on SmackDown did not come off as a one-off to me, because if it's a one-off appearance, you do it much differently. This felt much more like I'm back and I'm building to something. And if you are, this is dependent on his schedule, on what he can or can't do. That line about what can we do that's a first, that's different, that's special versus just a match. The first thing that comes to mind is that nobody's ever wrestled both nights at WrestleMania. So my first draft of the idea is that Saturday night it's Roman and Rock takes the title off of Roman on night 1, and on night 2 Cody beats Rock for the belt.
Ooh.
Because what sets up later is you still have unresolved business with Rock and Roman, so you still have a comeback match between the two of them. Roman has to eventually transition out of the tribal chief character. Eventually, that storyline's going to crest at some point.
It has already, in my opinion.
Roman didn't lose to Cody. He lost to Rock, but now Cody's got the belt, so Roman can come after Cody to get the belt. You didn't beat me for the belt, Cody. So you come and test the tribal chief now. The Rock, the biggest movie star in the world, the guy who we knew all odds were against me beating because he's The Rock. He beat me, but you didn't beat me, Cody. So I'm coming back for my title. Now you have Cody and Roman set up in a whole different dynamic, but a fresh feud where after WrestleMania you can build to them at SummerSlam. You can build to Rock and Roman at SummerSlam. That would be my first draft. I could see Roman or Cody being the guys who wrestle 2 nights in a row as well. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but that to me would seem like, oh, you set up a lot of different pieces, and Roman's streak ends at The Rock, not Cody. So there's the Anoa'i family story, and then Cody gets to fulfill his destiny for the family, but he's taking it off the biggest star in the business, which is also awesome. That's my first draft.
I like it. I like the idea. It gives room for Roman and The Rock to feud for a while to another pay-per-view. It gives Cody time to reign as champion, so it's not taken off of him for a while. I like it. I like the idea. And Cody is, like, my only thing is they better start getting to work on that story, because we're running out of time. WrestleMania 40 is not that far away.
But all he needs to do is he just needs to have a great showing at the Rumble. So he does all this. He builds up the baby face. Rock and Roman start to build their thing. They're about to go at it. Cody wins the Rumble. And now you've got 3 guys, and there's that big 3-way of like, wait a minute. I've got a championship match. You two are having your thing. And The Rock goes, well, why don't we do something that's never been done before in the history of the business? I'm going to wrestle both of you this way. No, but we have a championship match on Saturday night between me and my cousin, and whoever comes out of it, Cody, you'll get us on Sunday.
And having Rock possibly headlining both nights is how you sell a whole ton of tickets.
That you make huge business. And if you're going to have somebody wrestle 2 nights, if you're going to be The Rock and do something historic that's never been done, that also most of us would question whether he can go 2 nights in a row right now. And you know he can. You know he's coming to play.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know he could tear his shoulder out of the socket, and he's coming back for night 2 to raise that belt one last time over his head before he gives it to Cody, and the next year comes into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like it. And we still have, even though Cody seems lost in the shuffle, he's still involved in, like, Jey Uso. There's still bloodline elements there. I just hope they start building to it soon. I like that idea, though. That's a good way to do it. I'm for it. Other things that have happened during this time, I haven't really addressed all the firings that happened in WWE. Dolph Ziggler being the most painful one. He's a friend of the show, a friend of mine. I've gotten to know him over the last couple of years. And, I'm sure, I'm not going to speak for him, but I'm sure it's a little bit of a relief to be able to be like, all right, now I'm free to do whatever I want, because WWE wasn't doing much with him. He was technically a jobber at this point, putting people over, helping out the talent, which is admirable and awesome. But, you want to go out with a big run. And the only way to do that at this point, it wasn't going to happen in WWE. Now he can do a Cody run. He can go hit all the indies and he's going to be a star at any indie he shows up at, take belts around, go to New Japan, have a fucking classic with Okada or something. You know what I mean? And people are like, holy shit, Dolph is legit, because he is. He's a fucking amateur wrestler. Like, he has it. Go out there, do all of that. Go to AEW, have a crazy run, become tag champions with your brother. You know what I mean? And then come back to WWE as a bigger star than you have ever been. I think that's a good trajectory for Dolph, and I wish him the best. I know it, even if it's a relief, I know it still has to suck, because that's a long relationship that just got broken up. Other people on that list that got cut out: Mustafa Ali, Top Dollar, Shanky.
That was you, right?
I'm Top Dollar. I flopped that over the top. Tope Suicida. Mason Mansoor, Dana Brooke, Riddle was a little shocking. I mean, I know he's had backstage issues, but
I didn't know he was having as much trouble backstage as apparently he was, because I had seen him as a guy in this Roman Reigns era who he kept getting teased as getting moved up to that bigger spot, and I thought had some real potential. But apparently that it's, and if that's
too many issues, man.
If that's the case, that's I hope he's healthy and happy with all of it, and he can find some peace somewhere, because he's incredibly talented, connected with the fans, had all the pieces to do really well in that, and still has potential. We've seen many people come back from many different angles, many different times, leave and come back, go to a different place if they can stay happy and healthy long enough. But that one was, when I heard it, and I heard why, I started to understand. But it was sad, because it was also somebody that you could have seen him as a world champ one day. I don't
like his character as much, because there's only so much bro dude I can take. But he, in the ring, super talented.
Yeah.
If I'm allowed to fantasy book him a little bit, I think his epic return to Bloodsport, because he started Bloodsport.
Yeah.
He did the first Bloodsport. It was Matt Riddle's Bloodsport.
Oh, wow.
Before Josh. And then he gave it to Josh because he got the contract. And so I think his big return to Bloodsport, having a face-off with Josh, that sounds pretty fun.
Let me know when it happens. I'll be there live.
That sounds like fun to me.
Live.
Other people, Emma, Elias was a surprise. I mean, kind of. They did that whole thing with the brother Ezekiel and all that shit. That was it wasn't really a surprise. It was just kind of a bummer. Like, there was potential there, and you kind of let it go. He could have been the next Macho Man, dude. He looked like him.
He had a lot of. Those are three wrestlers in particular. You talk about Dolph, Matt Riddle, and Elias. You're like, all right, those are really solid talents who are Intercontinental champions, U.S. champions, potential world champion contenders. They're right in that range if they hit the right thing at the right moment. Any one of them had the potential to have that breakout season like LA Knight is having at the moment, where they set themselves apart and start to get considered how much of a main eventer are they, and how long are they going to stay in this picture? How much are they connecting with the audience, and how much can they move something in their direction? And they all had potential to do that. And I hope, like some of the other people we've seen released, they find all of these other avenues, whether it's AEW, New Japan, all of these other ways to continue. I am very sad about Dolph. I've not met him. We cross circles but not paths, but I'd be very much interested to meet him, shake his hand, ask him, especially because of how much he does stand up and puts into that.
And he's good at it.
Yeah. We have literal mutual friends, and we've just never run across each other. Well, Elias, we weren't doing anything with him at the moment, but he seemed to have such good connection with the audience.
Yeah, he had potential, man. That was a loss. Boogs is another one. I liked him because he was a rock and roll guy, big muscle guy, big body guy. But, there, like you said, there's a lot of avenues they can go now, and I'm happy that, some of these people will get more shine if they go somewhere else. Big fish, small pond kind of thing. You mentioned LA Knight. Where do we fit him into the world title picture?
So I'm also one of those people. I love that they brought in a world championship to counterbalance. I also love WWE's strategy where they are on a cycle where they'll do a brand split, We draft everybody, Raw and SmackDown. They'll never cross. 6 months later, they cross. For 2 years, they're crossing, and then they're like, we need a brand split. Let's cross it. And then within that, it's, let's join the titles. Let's split the titles. Like, join the title. It's like these abusive relationships you don't get. It's like you know exactly what the person's going to do, and they keep making 2 titles and then combining, and then 2 titles and combining. And I don't complain because it's cool, because I fully believe LA Knight will hold that world championship sometime within the next year. If it were me, I love the slow build they're doing. I compare it to the Austin 316 build, because if you think back, he says Austin 316 at King of the Ring. It's not the next week that he's big. It took time to let that build until he and Brett at the next Mania do something. Austin 316 at King of the Ring, at that SummerSlam, he was on the free-for-all almost losing to Yokozuna, except Yokozuna broke the top rope. Nobody remembers that, but LA Knight is getting that. Let him actually build and get the momentum. The stuff he's doing is awesome. The stuff with John Cena. He's calling out Roman Reigns. He's calling out Seth Rollins. So I would say he's a guy who either at WrestleMania, at Royal Rumble, wins the Rumble and goes on to challenge for the world title at Mania, or I would love to see a Mr. Money in the Bank cash in. If you could somehow, I don't know when the next Money in the Bank is. It's next year, isn't it?
Next year, yeah.
That's too long, I think. But that would have been if that were a January pay-per-view, and in January he wins a contract, and then he's for 3, 4, 6 months, and he comes out. But I think he not just has potential as world champion. I would be shocked if that's not exactly what they're planning. He's either going to beat Seth Rollins for the title, or he's beating whoever beats Seth for the title. He's going to be the next world champion.
Yeah, I'd give him that belt too. I as much as I'd like to see him face off against Roman, I think that's later down the road. If it happens,
and that's very dependent on, because again, my theory, Roman should not lose that title until he absolutely has to lose it for some reason. I think in a scripted show, the longer you make him go, the better. Like an Undertaker losing a winning streak, I actually think they mean the winning streak at WrestleMania means more when he loses, but you go past 20 and he loses, now all of a sudden it means something. Yeah. If Roman goes, he's got to beat Hogan's reign. You have the opportunity to replace Hulk Hogan's name on a list with Roman Reigns. That makes sense in every way. So that should be the story.